Hello students, welcome to this short video which is our part 3 of our environment topic, top 100 topics for environment for Prelims 2023. In the part 1, I have given you all those environmental acts which was in news and which you need to cover in detail for the Prelims. In the part 2 video, I have explained about the top 3 Rio conventions, that is UNFCCC, UNCBD and UNCCD, and all those related news and recent COPs I've already explained in the part 2. Now coming to this part 3 video, we will be talking about those topics which are in news and from separate categories of environment. So coming to first category, that is our forest category. So under the forest category, you need to go through some of the initiatives and some important topics which are in news and also important for the exam. So the first thing is Indian initiatives. So the subtopic is forest. And the Indian initiatives are, again, the topics will be repeated here also. That is number 1, Indian Forest Act of 1927. Again, it becomes an environmental act which I have already covered in the part 1. So here also you need to know Indian Forest Act from a forest initiative. You need to know what are reserved forest, what are village forest, what are protected forest, what are private forest. Second is Forest Conservation Act of 1980, where the concept of compensatory afforestation came into news. You also need to know what is Forest Advisory Council, that is FAC, which came from this Act of 1980, that is Forest Conservation Act of 1980. Third is you need to know about the tribal rights of the scheduled tribes who depend on the forest for a livelihood, and they have been staying there for more than 75 years. So that act is called Forest Rights Act of 2006. You need to cover in detail. And finally the CAMPA Act, that is Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act of 2016. You need to know the funding mechanisms and all those small provisions related to the CAMPA thing. Now the next thing is coming to the policies. So when you come into the policies of the government and it's related to the topic of forest, you need to know what is joint forest management. Now joint forest management is not a statute. It did not come from a particular law. It came from a policy, that is National Forest Policy of 1986. So you need to know what is joint forest management and any news related to joint forest management. So basically joint forest management is nothing when the management of forest is done by both by village communities and also the state forest government, and the profits and the inputs or the input cost, everything are shared between these two entities. Now coming to the third part, what is social forestry? You need to know what is social forestry, and also you need to know the recent National Forest Policy of 2020. Now one thing also which is in news, that is Indian State of Forest Report, ISFR, which is published by Forest Survey of India. Okay, now recently the report was published in 2021. Now this report, it gets published every 2 years. So in 2023 also it will be published. So you need to know all the details of the latest, that is 2021, and be prepared for 2023. Now coming to the global initiatives with regard to forest. First thing is you need to know what is UNFCCC. Okay, because it is related to climate change, and climate change also have an effect on forest. Both are interconnected. So you need to know UNFCCC. Now when you need to know UNFCCC, you need to know each and everything about Kyoto Protocol, because Kyoto Protocol ended in 2020. The second phase of Kyoto Protocol is 2012 to 2020. And you also need to know about Paris Agreement. Now when you know about this, now when you come under the forest category and when you're studying about UNFCCC, you need to know about UN RED mechanism and UN RED plus mechanism. What is the difference between these two? When did it come? From which COP it came? Now what are all the principles attached to RED, and what are all the initiatives which are not covered under RED plus? Because RED plus is nothing but it is a incentive mechanism, and RED is a program, but RED plus is an incentive program. It's like a scheme. So you need to know the difference between these two. Now you also need to know about good practices guidance, that is GPC. This topic also you need to cover. And some programs like Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, Forest Investment Program, all these things you need to cover. So this completely covers our forest department under environment topic. Now coming to some more topic, you need to know about air pollution, water pollution. Now when air pollution and water pollution comes, two acts come into news, that is Air Pollution Act and Water Act. And also one more comprehensive act, that is Environment Protection Act of 1986. These three acts you need to cover. Now when you are covering about Water Pollution Act and Air Pollution Act, also you will come to know about CPCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board, because the Central Pollution Control Board derives its power from the Air Act and Water Act. Initially it came from the Water Act of 1974. Now also it gets power from the Air Act of 1982 or 83. So here is not required. So these two acts in a way gives power to CPCB. Now when it comes to air pollution, you need to know all the pollutants, or just make a list of the pollutants and their sources. And some pollutants, like what is the severity of that pollutant in our universe, that also you need to know. Similarly, also cover another topic, that is invasive species, because invasive species is also in news. So invasive species, what are invasive species? What are the characteristics of invasive species? For example, exotic species, any new exotic species which is in news, and all the laws or legislations which are concerned with invasive species. Now, one point to be noted here is that we do not have a single universal law in India which completely or explicitly deals with invasive species. We have different sets of laws which deals with invasive species. We do not have a single law which defines or which talks only about invasive species. So invasive species also you need to cover. Now coming to the next thing, you need to cover some more conventions which are in news. See, 3 Rio conventions are already done. Now some more conventions, like for example CITES, CITES, that also you need to cover. Ramsar Convention. Now Ramsar means wetlands. So the recent wetlands which are added into the Ramsar site from our countryside. So you need to cover all those wetlands, their state, their nearby unique, any unique flora and fauna available, any lake or anything, any mountain ranges, any river nearby to that wetland, everything you need to cover. So Ramsar Convention and CITES is very new, important. Now coming to some organizations like some international NGOs, you need to know first and foremost is IUCN. Now IUCN is International Union for Conservation of Nature. Now how to cover this topic? First of all, it creates a list called Red List of Threatened Species. Very simple. Red List of Threatened Species, how it is done, and till what is the time period, like whether it's a 3-year or a 5-year, you need to check. You simply need to go to the IUCN website and check. Second thing, there is also a green list of threatened species. You need to know what is the difference between the red list and the green list. Same IUCN does it, the green list of threatened species. Now, any recent news, for example, there is a very recent news called some nature vision of 2030. The IUCN has brought up with a vision of 2030. So that also you need to cover. So how to cover? You can only cover when you go to the IUCN website. You can go to the IUCN website and see that what all new things have come. Now coming to some other organizations like traffic, WWF, all these things also you need to cover. I think that's all in news as far as environment is concerned. And yeah, one more thing you need to add here is species. Any species in news. Some important species I'll be telling you. For example, tiger, crocodile, lion, cheetah. These 4 are in news. Also, rhinoceros, and elephant. These 5 to 6 species, their census, what is their status, where they are found, any specific national park, any particular area, all these things you need to cover as far as environment is concerned. So I think that's pretty much done with the environment topic. This was our part 3. So you can go through part 1, part 2 and this video and can prepare with proper MCQs. I'm telling you again and again, after you revise all these things, please cover MCQs, minimum 2000 to 3000 MCQs. In this channel, I'll be putting some 50 to 100 or 100 to 150 odd good brainstorming MCQs from environment free of cost. Thank you.